Alexander Dumont stood by the tall windows of his corner office, looking out over the city skyline as the sun rose. He had built this empire from nothing. Years ago, he had written lines of code in a cramped apartment, living on instant noodles. In burned-out ambition? Now his company was a household name. His face appeared on magazine covers and tech blogs praised his innovations. Yet, behind the confident smile and polished suits, Alexander maintained one rule with iron resolve. He would never allow curvy black women into his private world. In meetings, he watched potential hires on screen, browsing resumes and photos. With clinical detachment, his dating app filtered out profiles based on hidden criteria he rarely spoke of, but everyone understood. He insisted it protected his public image and shielded him from gossip. His closest aides never challenged it. They arranged dates, approved guest lists, and pre-screened social events to make sure any woman who entered his circle met his unspoken standards. At company retreats and charity galas, Alexander moved through crowds of investors, celebrities, and socialites. He wore sharp tuxedos and bespoke shoes. He greeted CEOs of rival firms with firm handshakes and strategic compliments. But whenever a curvy black woman approached, he would quickly excuse himself. He did not want to appear rude, so he spoke to his assistant later in private. "Make sure she isn't at the next event." His assistant nodded, used to this request. They had refined the list over years. Meanwhile, outside his carefully controlled world, voices rose in protest. Activists pointed out how Alexander's foundation gave millions to diversity initiatives, yet his personal life remained narrow. They wrote blogs about the disconnect between his public generosity and private bias. Social media posts linked his company's charitable work to glaring hypocrisy. People praised his software breakthroughs, but they balked at his discriminatory rule. Inside the boardroom, Alexander's team brought forward a proposal for a scholarship program. The idea was to support underrepresented groups in tech. Project would bear his name. He listened politely as the executives took turns speaking. Each slide showed smiling faces of young women of different backgrounds. When the room buzzed with applause, Alexander allowed himself a small nod, yet he still held to his rule. No curvy black women in his personal feedback sessions. No curvy black women at his table. His life felt seamless, controlled. He traveled in a private jet, dined at 5-star restaurants, and stayed in luxury hotels. He collected art and vintage watches. Everything had its place, just as he liked it. His rule comforted him. It told him who was welcome. It kept him safe from unpredictability. On a Monday morning, Alexander reviewed emails in his sleek office. One message caught his eye, an invitation to the annual company retreat in Miami. He glanced at the list of attendees arranged by department. Event planners, security staff, PR executives, barely skimmed it, confident that his instructions had been followed. No curvy black women. But at that moment, his assistant knocked and entered. "Mr. Dumont, I wanted to confirm the final guest list for Miami," she said, placing a folder on his desk. Alexander picked it up. He saw names, roles, and photos. As he turned a page, he caught sight of one photo he hadn't expected. A woman with a bright smile and confident stance. Her curves were unmistakable, and her skin glowed like polished mahogany. He looked again at her name, Maya Rivers, event planner. He frowned and closed the folder. "Remove her," he said. His assistant paused. "She's crucial to the logistics, sir," she replied softly. "Her team has delivered flawless retreats for years. The client is very happy with her work." Alexander rubbed his forehead. He did not like to show uncertainty. "Find someone else," he insisted. "Anyone else." She shook her head. "Mr. Dumont, many of our regular planners are booked. Maya's team is the only one available this time." Her tone was respectful, but firm. Alexander felt a jolt of irritation. He wanted to refuse, but he also needed the retreat to run smoothly. He opened the folder again, staring at Maya's picture. He tried to recall any flaw. None. Her posture was professional, her clothes neat and modern. He recognized her from a tech conference video where she had efficiently arranged panel discussions. Could not deny her talent. The room for excuses had narrowed. Finally, he sighed. "Fine," he said, "but make sure she is supervised. I don't want surprises." His assistant nodded and left.
Alexander stared at the city below.
He wondered why this detail bothered him so much. He told himself it was about image and control. Yet he could not dismiss the feeling that something
was shifting inside him. In the days leading up to the retreat, Alexander prepared presentations, product demos, and welcome speeches. He arrived in Miami a day early to oversee final arrangements. That evening, he found himself in the grand lobby of the hotel, where Maya was reviewing seating charts under bright lights. She moved with calm confidence, speaking quietly into her headset as she adjusted a floral display. Alexander approached, clearing his throat. "Ms. Rivers," he said, offering his hand. She turned, meeting his gaze. Her smile was warm but professional, "Mr. Dumont," she replied. Her voice was steady, carrying a hint of curiosity. He studied her face, the gentle curve of her lips, the bright intelligence in her eyes. And he felt something unfamiliar, a soft tug of admiration mixed with hesitation. He remembered his rule and the reason he had tried so hard to avoid this moment, yet here it was. "I want everything perfect tomorrow," he said. "No mistakes." She nodded. "I understand. We'll make sure it's flawless." He hesitated. "I hope you can handle my standards." Her smile widened just slightly. "Sir, I've handled tougher clients." Alexander allowed himself a small laugh. It surprised him how easily he laughed. He handed her a small set of instructions, his handwriting neat and precise. Maya took the papers. Her fingers brushed. He felt a spark of something he could not name. As he turned to leave, Maya called after him, "Mr. Dumont, if you need anything, feel free to reach out." He paused, looking over his shoulder. "Thank you," he said softly. That night, Alexander lay in bed, staring at the ceiling in the dark. He thought of Maya's calm voice, her confident stance, her ready smile. He wondered why he had fought so hard to keep her out. He told himself it was just one person, one retreat. But the thought of her lingered, like an unfinished sentence. In the morning, as he walked into the grand ballroom, he saw Maya directing staff with firm gestures. Flowers were arranged, tables were set, and the stage was ready. The room looked perfect. He felt a rush of satisfaction, but also a twist of guilt. He had doubted her, yet she had delivered. He paused at the back of the room, watching Maya move among her team. She noticed him and offered a polite nod. He returned it, feeling the weight of his own rules. He realized that, for all his success, he had built walls around himself, walls that may have kept out more than just curvy black women. As colleagues and clients filed in, Alexander took his place at the head table. The retreat began with welcoming remarks, applause, and bright smiles. Yet as he spoke, his mind drifted to Maya and the rule he had tried so hard to enforce. He wondered if rules like his were worth holding on to when they kept out people who could bring real value and real joy. And in that moment, Alexander Dumont, the man who rarely questioned his own judgments, felt the first crack in his unbreakable policy. The next morning, Alexander woke before sunrise. He stared at the soft glow of lamplight through his suite's curtains. Last night's thoughts of Maya Rivers still hummed in his mind like a gentle warning. He dressed in a crisp suit faster than usual, as if speed could quiet the strange flutter in his chest. He took a deep breath before stepping into the hallway, reminding himself that this was just business. He found the ballroom nearly empty, the hush broken only by the shuffle of staff making final checks. Maya stood at the far end, clipboard in hand, watching as a florist arranged white roses along the stage. Her dark hair was pulled back and she wore fitted slacks and a neat blouse. She looked absorbed in her task, calm yet focused. Alexander approached quietly, feeling an unfamiliar mix of pride and anxiety. "Good morning," he said softly. Maya looked up and offered a polite smile. "Good morning, Mr. Dumont," she replied, her voice steady and clear. "Everything is on schedule. We just need to place the welcome signs and adjust the lighting." He nodded, Show me. She led him through the rows of chairs toward the front. She pointed to each detail. A small folder on each seat with the agenda. Water bottles lined up just so, name cards perfectly centered. Alexander listened, observing. How her eyes flicked from arrangement to arrangement, how her hands moved with quiet precision. He found himself loosening his tie without meaning to. He cleared his throat. You really thought of everything. Maya tilted her head. That's my job. He followed her as she escorted him back to the entrance, where early attendees began to trickle in. A group of young entrepreneurs greeted him with wide eyes. He smiled and shook hands, but he kept glancing at Maya as she guided staff to greet guests. During the welcome speech, Alexander stood at the podium, spoke about vision, innovation, and teamwork. He spoke confidently, but when he looked at the crowd, his gaze settled on Maya. She stood near the side, clipboard tucked under her arm, watching him with a neutral expression. In that moment, he noticed how her eyes softened when his words touched on community and respect. He suddenly felt exposed, as if she could see past his suit and status to the man underneath. After the speech, Alexander returned to his seat. The applause was loud, but in his ears it sounded distant. Maya approached, handing him a small bottle of water. You look nervous, she said softly. He blinked. I wasn't, he replied, though his pulse quickened. She smiled kindly. It's normal to feel it at the start. You did well? He blinked again, surprised by the warmth in her tone. No one had ever offered him comfort at moments like these. He cleared his throat. Thank you. Throughout the morning sessions, panel discussions, product demos, Q, and Alexander's eyes kept drifting to Maya. He noticed how she listened to each speaker, taking notes, then whispered instructions into an earpiece. When a microphone on stage failed, Maya stepped in, guided the technician, and had it working in seconds. She moved confidently, like a conductor directing an orchestra. He realized that without her, the day would not run so smoothly. At midday, a catered lunch was served buffet style. The hall filled with chatter as guests picked salads, sandwiches, and sweets. Alexander made polite conversation with clients, but his thoughts stayed on Maya. He scanned the room until he spotted her near the back, guiding servers where to place trays. He walked over. Lunch looks good, he said, nodding to the spread. She smiled. I chose a healthy menu, but I added a few treats. She pointed to a platter of chocolate-dipped strawberries. They're popular. He picked one up and bit into it. Sweet juice dribbled down his chin. He wiped it away, feeling both amused and self-conscious. Maya laughed softly. Don't worry, she said. It happens to everyone, he grinned. I'm surprised how much I needed this. She raised an eyebrow. What, the strawberries or the retreat? Both, he admitted. I've spent so long protecting my image that I've forgotten what it feels like to enjoy simple things. Maya nodded thoughtfully. Sometimes people hide behind rules because they're afraid of being hurt. But when you trust someone, you get to experience real moments. He studied her face, taking in the honesty there. He felt a pang of regret for the unspoken rule he had held. You're right. She turned to walk back to the servers. Enjoy your lunch, Mr. Dumont, she said over her shoulder. Alexander watched her go. He realized her advice applied to more than just the retreat. It applied to his life. The afternoon schedule included breakout sessions. Alexander had several commitments: a product demonstration, a press interview, and a keynote speech later. Maya oversaw communications, ensuring speakers and technicians stayed on time. He found her after his demo in a side room, unplugging cables and helping staff pack equipment. Everything okay? He asked. She wiped her hands on a cloth. Yes, but the next session starts in 15 minutes. We need to move the tables. He looked around. The tables were still spread out for lunch. He hesitated, then said, Let me help. Her eyes widened in surprise, but she nodded. Together they moved tables and chairs, staff pausing to watch. Maya gave quick, clear directions, and Alexander followed. He felt sweaty in his suit, but also alive. He noticed how her eyes reflected gratitude and something like approval. When the room looked ready, Maya stepped back and smiled at him. Thank you, she said. Alexander shrugged, breathing heavily. Should have done this earlier. She studied him. "You did it now." He nodded. Better late than never. Before he left for the press interview, Maya handed him a small card. "If you have any issues with the keynote setup, call this number. It's my direct line." He took the card, feeling the weight of her gesture. The card felt heavy with meaning. He tucked it into his breast pocket. During his press, interview reporters asked him about market trends and future plans. He answered smoothly, but his mind wandered back to Maya's card and her words. He wondered what would happen if he followed her advice about simple moments. Later, as the sun dipped low, the retreat moved outdoors for a casual networking event. By the pool. String lights glowed above tables of appetizers and drinks. Attendees laughed and moved between conversations. Alexander lingered by the edge of the pool, watching the water shimmer. Maya approached, dressed in a smart blazer over jeans, looking more relaxed than all day. "Evening, Mr. Dumont," she said, offering a glass of sparkling water. "Please, call me Alexander," he replied. She studied his face. "Alexander, you seem different tonight." He smiled. "I feel different." He gestured toward the pool. "Thank you for today." She nodded. "You're welcome." "But I think you did most of the work?" He shook his head. "No, you did. You guided everyone, fixed every problem. You even helped me move tables." Maya laughed. A warm sound that made Alexander's heart skip. "I had a good team," she said, "and a willing helper." He took a small sip of water. "I want to know more about you." Her expression softened. "What would you like to—" "No," he hesitated, then said, "What brought you into event planning?" Maya looked out over the pool. "I started by organizing community gatherings in my neighborhood. I wanted people to come together, to talk, to feel connected. I saw how a simple event could change someone's day." Alexander listened, fascinated. "That's powerful." She glanced at him. "What about you? Why did you build your company?" He paused. Could answer with talk of innovation, but he sensed Maya wanted something deeper. He inhaled. "I wanted to create something lasting. I grew up in a town where opportunities were limited. I saw how a small idea could open big doors. I wanted to build doors for others." Maya smiled, and he felt a warmth spread through him. "That's a good reason." They stood in companionable silence. Lights reflecting in the pool. Alexander realized that he was learning from her, just as she had learned from him. He felt a growing respect, a growing curiosity, and, for the first time, a hope that he could let go of his old rule and embrace something new. As the evening wound down, guests began to leave. Maya gathered her team for a final check. She turned. "To Alexander, thank you for being open today." He paused, then said, "Thank you for everything." She nodded and left with her team. Alexander watched her go, the last glow of string lights framing her figure. He felt a shift inside him, a loosening of old barriers, a stirring of possibility. He knew the rule he had held was more than just about dates or events. It was about fear holding him back from real connection.
At night,
Alexander Dumont lay awake again, but this time the flutter in his chest was not a warning. It was an invitation. He thought of Maya's smile by the pool, of her calm confidence, of how she had changed his day and maybe his life. He realized that part of him wanted to break the rule entirely, did not know what would come next, but he felt ready to find out. Alexander woke early again, but this time he did not lie awake in the dark. He rose with purpose, remembering the promise he had made to himself last night. He dressed more casually, but still with care, a fine shirt and slacks instead of a full suit. The morning sun peeked through the curtains as he walked toward the hotel restaurant. He found Maya already there, seated alone at a table near the window, reviewing notes on her tablet. Her presence was calm and steady, and she looked up with a smile when she saw him. "Good morning," she said, keeping her voice low so the other guests would not overhear. "Good morning," he replied, sliding into the chair across from her. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all," she said, closing her tablet. "Coffee?" He nodded. Soon, a waiter arrived, and Maya ordered 2 coffees and fresh fruit. Alexander admired the way she spoke, with the staff respectful but confident. He thought back to the rule he had held for so long, and felt its weight lifting. They sipped coffee in companionable silence, watching the morning light drift across the room. Finally, Maya set her cup down. "I wanted to thank you for trusting me these last 2 days," she said. "I know you had doubts." He smiled. "I did. But you have been incredible." She nodded. "I try to be, but I also believe in giving people second chances. You gave me one?" He paused, reflecting on the truth in her words. "I did. And you've shown me more than I expected." Their conversation shifted to lighter topics: favorite books, childhood memories, places they wanted to travel. Alexander found himself laughing easily, feeling a connection he had not felt in years. He realized the rule he had imposed had cost him moments like this, simple moments of genuine human warmth. After breakfast, they parted ways to prepare. For the day's sessions, Xander went to rehearse his keynote speech. Maya returned to coordinate logistics. Over the next hours, Alexander watched Maya from across the room as she navigated busy hallways, offered guidance to staff, and handled sudden challenges: a speaker running late, an audio glitch, a last-minute seating change. She remained composed, solving each issue with grace. Alexander admired her professionalism, but more than that, he admired her kindness. She treated every person, technician, caterer, volunteer, with respect. During a break between sessions, Alexander stood alone, on a balcony overlooking the coast. The warm breeze carried the scent of salt and flowers. He replayed Maya's words in his mind: trust, second chances, human warmth. He realized those words meant more to him than any rule. He heard footsteps behind him and turned to see Maya approaching. She carried a small box tied with a ribbon. "I found this in the supply room," she said, holding it out. "It's extra supplies for the welcome kits, something you might want to see." He took the box, curious. Inside were small notebooks embossed with the company logo, plus pens. She had added a personal touch, a handwritten note on each notebook. That read, "Welcome, let's build the future together." He looked at her in surprise. "You did this?" She nodded. "I thought it would help guests feel more connected." He felt his chest tighten. "This is thoughtful." She brushed back a strand of hair. "It's a small thing, but it matters." He smiled softly. "It matters a lot." They stood in silence, watching the waves. He realized once again how much he had underestimated her. Later that afternoon, Alexander received a call from his public relations director. She wanted to discuss a potential article about his sudden openness to new ideas. He hesitated, but agreed to talk in his office. He found his usual team waiting, eager to hear what he thought. "Sir, the media wants to highlight your change of heart," the director began. "They say you're rewriting your personal policy and embracing diversity more openly." Alexander listened as they outlined strategies for handling interviews and crafting the narrative. He noticed how easily they shifted back to talk of image. He cleared his throat. "I appreciate the interest," he said, "but I want to focus on real action, not just headlines." His team exchanged glances. Of course, one said, "We'll coordinate a press release alongside the scholarship announcement." Alexander nodded slowly. "Good, but first, I want to check with Maya. I want her input." His team looked surprised. "You want to involve the event planner?" He met their eyes. "Yes, she's shown me more about connection than anyone else." They nodded, quieter now. Alexander realized he was no longer the man who placed rules above people. He walked back to the ballroom, where Maya was overseeing the setup for the evening gala. Soft music played and warm lights glowed against white linen tables. He approached her, feeling both excitement and nervousness. "Maya," he called. She turned and smiled. "I just spoke with my PR team," he said. "I want to change things. I want to remove my old filters, update the app settings, and publicly announce a scholarship in your name." Her eyes widened. "My name?" Nodded, "Yes. I want to honor how much you've taught me these last days." Maya looked at the glittering hall around them, and then back at him. She seemed touched. "Thank you," she said softly. He swallowed. "But more than that, I want you to be more involved. I want your ideas on the scholarship and our diversity efforts." She took a breath. "I'd like that." He smiled.
Right.
Would you join me on stage tonight? I want to introduce you as my partner in this new initiative." She hesitated for only a moment. Then she nodded. "I'd be honored." That evening, the gala began with music and laughter. Guests mingled, enjoying drinks and hors d'oeuvres. Alexander took to the stage for his keynote speech about vision, change, and community. He spoke from the heart, sharing his journey these past days. He spoke of rules that once protected him but then held him back. He spoke of meeting someone who showed him a better way. He paused and looked toward Maya, who stood near the front row. She was radiant in a simple black dress. He smiled and gestured for her to join him. As she stepped onto the stage, the audience applauded. Alexander turned to her. "This is Maya Rivers," he said. "She is the event planner who made this retreat possible. More importantly, she taught me that true strength comes from opening your heart, not building walls. Together, we will launch the Dumont Trivers Scholarship for women in tech, dedicated to creating opportunities for those our world has overlooked." The crowd erupted in cheers. Maya stood beside him, her hand resting lightly on his arm. He felt stronger with her by his side. Later, after the gala ended, Alexander and Maya walked along the moonlit terrace. The ocean sparkled in the night, and a soft breeze whispered through the palms. "Thank you, Alexander," Maya said, "for giving me a chance." He took her hand. "Thank you for helping me see what matters." She looked up at him. "What's next?" He smiled, tightening his grip on her hand. "Whatever we decide together." In that moment, Alexander Dumont knew that his old rule was gone forever. He felt free to embrace people for who they were, free to build a legacy of inclusion, free to open his heart to new possibilities. And with Maya by his side, he felt ready for whatever life would bring next. Alexander returned home the day after the gala with a mix of excitement and nerves. He walked through his front door, the echo of guests' applause still ringing in his ears. The house was quiet, too quiet after the busy days at the retreat. He thought of Maya's bright smile on stage, of how she'd stood beside him in front of so many people. He realized that his life had changed in ways he didn't yet fully understand. He found Maya waiting for him in the living room, leaning against the mantel above the fireplace. She held 2 glasses of wine and smiled when he entered. He took the glass she offered him and sat beside her on the sofa. For a moment, neither spoke. The soft glow of the lamps warmed the room. Outside, the city lights twinkled like distant stars. "Maya," he began, lifting his glass. "I want to thank you again for everything." She clinked her glass to his. "2 new beginnings," she said. He nodded and took a sip. The wine was smooth. He felt it settle in his chest. Why her kindness had? They talked late into the night about plans for the scholarship, about how to reach young women in underfunded communities. Maya shared her ideas. Mentorship programs, community workshops. It's an online forum where women could ask questions and find support. Alexander listened, amazed by her vision. He realized that her strength lay not just in planning events, but in bringing people together. The next morning, Alexander headed to the office with a renewed sense of purpose. In the elevator, he scrolled through his phone and saw dozens of messages congratulating him on the speech. Some friends wrote that they were proud of his change. Others teased him gently about giving up his rules. He smiled, tapping a quick reply. Till recently, messages like these would have made him tense. Now, they only made him hopeful. Stepping into the boardroom, he found his executive team assembled around the long table. They stood as he entered, offering polite nods and smiles. He looked at each of them in turn, noticing their curious expressions. He took a deep breath. "I've made some changes," he said. His voice was calm but firm. He saw surprise ripple through the room. "First, effective immediately, we are removing all biased filters from our platforms. We will audit our algorithms to ensure they reflect our values of fairness and inclusion." He paused, letting the words sink in. Some faces relaxed. Others tightened. He continued, "Second, we will launch the Dumont Trivers Scholarship next quarter. Maya Rivers will co-lead this initiative. She has joined us as Vice President of Community Engagement." His team shifted in their seats. He saw both excitement and uncertainty. "Vice President," asked one senior executive. "We haven't discussed this." Alexander smiled. "Consider it discussed. Maya has the talent and the vision. She will help us build bridges with communities we've never reached." He held his gaze steady. "I trust her judgment. I hope you will too." There was a quiet moment, then his coup stood. "I think it's a great idea," she said. Others chimed in with agreement. A few cleared their throats, but no one argued. Alexander felt a surge of pride not in himself, but in the team he led. That afternoon, Maya arrived at the office. She wore a tailored blazer and slacks, looking poised yet approachable. Alexander introduced her to the department heads. He watched as she spoke about mentorship programs and community panels, her voice confident and warm. He noticed how colleagues leaned in to listen, how they nodded at her ideas. After the meeting, Alexander and Maya walked through the hallways together, pointed out the new conference rooms named after inspiring women in tech, led her to his private office, and closed the door. "You did amazing today," he said, turning to her. They all listened. She smiled, but her eyes shone with emotion. "I'm honored you asked me to join. This means a lot to me." He stepped closer. "You've changed me more than you know." He reached out and took her hand. She squeezed it gently. Outside, the sun was setting again, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. In that moment, Alexander felt a calm conviction. He knew his old rules were gone, replaced by something stronger, a commitment to fairness, guided by respect for real people. Over the next week, Alexander and Maya worked side by side. They drafted scholarship criteria, lined up partner organizations, and sketched out plans for workshops. Maya introduced him to her network of community leaders. He discovered neighborhoods he'd never known, people whose experiences humbled him. He listened to stories of struggle and success. He felt grateful that his platform could help amplify these voices. One afternoon, Alexander received an email from a former colleague who had objected to his changes. The message was terse. "I don't know what you're doing, but it's bad for business." Alexander stared at the screen. For an instant, he felt the old pull of fear and doubt. Then he remembered Maya's words. "Walls protect you, but they also trap you." He deleted the email and drafted a simple reply. "I believe in this direction. Thank you for your feedback." He hit send. He felt lighter than he had in years. That evening, Maya invited him to a community center where she hosted a creative workshop for young women. He had never seen her world up close. They arrived as teens arranged art supplies around tables. Maya greeted each with a warm hug or a friendly high five. Alexander watched as she guided a shy girl through painting her initials on a tote bag. He felt his heart swell. He realized the impact of giving people a chance. He saw how trust could transform a room. Maya looked up at him, her eyes sparkling with purpose. He understood then that his life, even his empire, was richer because he had let go of his rule. On the drive home later, they sat side by side in his car. Maya reached for his hand. "Thank you for coming," she said softly. He squeezed her hand. "Thank you for inviting me." They shared a smile framed by passing streetlights. Alexander knew that the path ahead would have challenges. There would be critics and setbacks. But for the first time, he felt ready to face them with someone he trusted by his side. As he lay in bed that night, he reflected on the journey so far. He thought of the man he had been, cautious, distant, hiding behind rules. He thought of the woman who had shown him a better way, open, brave, compassionate. He whispered into the darkness, "Thank you, Maya." And somewhere in the quiet night, Alexander Dumont knew that the next chapter, whatever it held, would be written together. The morning light streamed through the curtains, and Alexander Dumont woke with a sense of calm purpose. The city outside was beginning to stir, but inside his home there was a gentle quiet. He rose and stretched, then paused by the window, thinking. Back over the journey that had brought him here, he remembered the rigid rule he once held, the fear that had kept him from opening his heart. He thought of Maya Rivers, the woman who had shown him a better way. A soft smile touched his lips as he turned away from the window and made his way to the breakfast nook, where Maya was already waiting with 2 mugs of coffee. "Good morning," she said, handing him a mug. her eyes held warmth and confidence. "Good morning," he replied, lifting his mug in a small toast. The steam curled between them, carrying the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee. He sat down across from her and took a slow sip, savoring the flavor in the moment. They had planned this day for weeks. Today was the official launch of the Dumont Trivers Scholarship for Women in Tech. Invitations had gone out to schools, nonprofits, and local media. Scholarship applications were open online, and social media buzzed with hope and excitement. Alexander felt proud, but also a gentle flutter of nerves. He glanced at Maya, who gave him an encouraging smile. You ready?" she asked quietly. He nodded. "With you by my side, I feel ready for anything." She reached across the table and squeezed his hand. He drank the last of his coffee, set the mug down, and stood. She stood too, and together they headed out the door, walking side by side to his car at the scholarship launch event. A large tent stood on the lawn of the company's headquarters. White chairs were arranged in neat rows facing a small stage. Banners displayed the scholarship name and logo, a rising sun framed by a circuit board pattern. A small crowd of students, families, community leaders, and company staff gathered, chatting with excitement. Volunteers handed out programs and answer cards for questions. Alexander and Maya arrived just as the event coordinator signaled them. They walked up the red carpet to the stage. Maya glowed in a fitted dress the color of deep emerald, while Alexander wore a crisp suit without a tie, feeling both formal and relaxed. They stepped onto the stage and took their places behind the podium. The audience settled into a hush of anticipation. Alexander cleared his throat. His pulse ticked behind his ribs, but he spoke calmly. "Good morning, everyone," he began. His voice carried over the crowd with steady authority. "Thank you for joining us today for the launch of the Dumont Trivers Scholarship for Women in Tech." He paused, meeting the eyes of students who sat near the front. He felt a wave of inspiration wash over him. "Our world needs bright minds, new ideas, and fresh perspectives," he said. "Too often, talented young women face barriers that hold them back from pursuing their dreams in technology. Almaya Rivers and I believe in breaking down these barriers. We believe in creating opportunities where they are needed most." He gestured toward Maya, who stepped forward slightly. She smiled at the crowd, her presence calm and strong. "This scholarship is for you. And for every young woman who has ever been told she does not belong," Maya said, her voice clear and warm. "We want to support your education, your personal growth, and your dreams. We will offer not only financial aid, but also mentorship, workshops, and a community that cares about your success." The audience broke into applause. Alexander felt his heart swell. He thought of the girls who would apply, the futures they would build, and the barriers they would break. He looked at Maya and knew he had made the right choice. After their speeches, volunteers invited attendees to meet Alexander and Maya, ask questions, and take photos beside the banner. Students lined up, wide-eyed, clutching application forms and pens. Parents thanked Alexander for his vision and Maya for her compassion. Community leaders spoke of the scholarship's potential to change lives. At one point, a shy teenager approached Maya's side. She held out a handmade card with shaky hands. "I just wanted to say thank you," the girl whispered. "I've always loved coding, but I never thought I could study it in college." Maya knelt to the girl's level and took the card. She smiled gently. "Thank you for sharing," she said. "You deserve every chance to follow your passion. We believe in you." The girl's eyes filled with tears of gratitude. Alexander watched the exchange and felt tears in his own eyes. He knew he had been right to trust Maya's vision. Later, Alexander and Maya walked through the crowd, greeting supporters and donors. A reporter from a local newspaper caught up with them. She asked questions about the scholarship's goals and future plans. Alexander answered thoughtfully, then handed the microphone to Maya for her perspective. She spoke of community outreach, partnerships with schools, and her hope to inspire more women to pursue tech careers. The reporter nodded, impressed. When the event began to wind down, Alexander and Maya stepped off the lawn and into a small reception area inside the building. Light refreshments awaited them. They found a quiet corner and shared a plate of fruit. "And cheese, Maya," Alexander said softly. "Thank you for believing in this idea as much as I did. Your guidance made it something real." She smiled, eyes shining. "Thank you for trusting me. We did this together." He took her hand and felt the gentle warmth of her skin. He realized how much their partnership had grown. It was not just about business or events. It was about shared values, mutual respect, and a desire to make the world better. That evening, Alexander returned home alone. He entered his living room and sank into the sofa, exhaustion mixed with satisfaction pulling at him. He closed his eyes and replayed the day's moments, the applause at the launch, the hope in the students' faces, Maya's shining confidence. As she guided the event, he felt grateful for every step that had led him here. His phone buzzed with messages. Congratulations from friends, media articles praising the scholarship, thank you notes from community partners. He read each one carefully, savoring their warmth. He paused at a text from Maya that read, "Tonight, I'm hosting a small thank you dinner for the volunteers at my favorite cafe. I'd love if you joined." He smiled and tapped a quick reply. "I'll be there. Looking forward to it." Later, at the cafe, Maya greeted him with a quick hug. The cafe was cozy, with low lights and wooden tables. Volunteers from the scholarship launch sat around, chatting and laughing. They cheered when Alexander arrived. Maya waved him over. "Everyone. This is Alexander," she announced. "Thank you all for your hard work today." They all clapped and raised their glasses. Alexander felt at home among this group of passionate people. He listened as they shared stories of the day's successes and small mishaps they had overcome. Maya's leadership shone through every anecdote, and Alexander felt proud to be at her side. After dinner, he and Maya stepped outside into the warm night air. The cafe sign glowed softly behind them. They walked toward the street hand in hand. The city hummed around them, cars passed by. Streetlights glowed and distant music drifted from a nearby shop. "Maya," he said, stopping beneath a lamppost. She turned to him, her face lit by the soft yellow light. "Yes," she replied. He took a steady breath. "These last days have changed my life in ways I never imagined. I want to keep growing personally and in partnership with you." Her eyes softened. "I feel the same way," she said. He smiled. "No, I said this before, but I want to be sure. Maya Rivers, will you continue this journey with no rules or walls between us, only trust and respect?" She lifted an eyebrow playfully. "Alexander Dumont, I thought you already made that." "Promise," he laughed, relief and joy coursing through him. "I want to hear it again from you." She stepped closer. "I promise," she said, "to face every challenge with you, to build every new idea with you, and to share in every success. No walls, only open hearts." He reached out and gently touched her cheek. "Thank you," he whispered. Then he leaned in and kissed her softly under the streetlight. They stood together. Two people who had learned the power of letting go of fear and opening their hearts. The city lights glimmered around them, promising new adventures. Alexander knew that the legacy he built would be more than just a scholarship or a company. It would be a life shared with someone who saw him, challenged him, and loved him for who he was. And as they walked home hand in hand, the night felt full of promise. Their story, once bound by rigid rules, had blossomed into something beautiful, an open path leading toward a future full of hope, opportunity, and love.